You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Bella Perez Rubio, Puma Podcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka News. Balitang thinking, hindi breaking. In this episode,
When the PBBM administration took office, meron pong mga issues na naparating po sa atin ng ating mga kaibigan sa LGUs na I think marami po sa kanila ang hindi pa po prepared para sa tinatawag nating full devolution.
the government has been preparing for years to delegate more money and power to LGUs, but concerns over their capacity to absorb larger functions persist. So the story begins in 2018, when the Supreme Court ruled that local units of the government should get more funding. This would allow LGUs to finally absorb functions delegated to them in 1991 under the Local Government Code. But the shift to what's known as devolution has been tricky, to say the least. Almost 5 years later, and we're still in a period of transition.
I'm sure you all know about the full devolution as a result of the Supreme Court decision, the Garcia Mandanas Supreme Court decision case.
That's Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman speaking at the Palace briefing last month.
In 2019, the previous administration prepared an executive order, it's Executive Order 138, which says that we have a transition period until 2024 before we fully implement the devolution of projects and programs to the local government units.
But why is it taking so long to make the shift? As you heard Secretary Pangandaman mention at the top of this episode, many LGUs are unprepared.
For example po, nakalagay po sa ating local government code, pati po yung kunyari, a national irrigation system. I think a small water impounding system can be implemented by an LGU, but I don't think they can implement a big irrigation system project. Plus the fact po na ang irrigation project, it's usually transverse among different areas po, no? So may mga ganun po, may mga proyekto po na sobrang laki na talagang at saka kailangan po ng technical capacity and expertise po ng mga tao sa LGUs to prepare and plan po properly and efficiently yung mga projects. Talagang hindi lang po talaga nila kaya. May example po kanina, isang barangay po, even a short barangay road, hindi nila kaya. So talagang dito po kailangan mag-come in ang gobyerno para po matulungan sila.
To fix this, several departments are currently working to capacitate 4th and 5th class municipalities. Around 450 of them need help by the national government's count. Secretary Pangandaman said a total of 1 billion pesos will be spent this year to help these LGUs catch up to their more urbanized counterparts.
It's a chicken and egg situation. The national government blames the LGUs for not being prepared, but in itself, the national government is guilty for not making these resources available so that the LGUs can be prepared on this.
I spoke to Minda News reporter Froilan Gallardo to better understand the difficulties faced by these LGUs.
Many of them are used to asking for support from the national government. So the expertise is not there. But many LGUs, like big cities, what we call highly urbanized centers in Mindanao, are very capable of having a big budget.
And it's not just an issue of capacity. Froilan says even under this new setup, the national government maintains a huge amount of control over local authorities.
For the big ticket projects, local government units has to submit their projects to the regional development councils. And in turn, the regional development councils sell these projects to the National Development Council for funding.
Regional Development Councils, or RDCs, are tasked with aligning national, local, and regional priorities.
In short, it's like giving a federal system of governance where local government units can decide where to invest. But it's not gonna happen because, as I said, every project the local government has to pass the National Regional Development Council. It has to pass national government scrutiny.
Froilan also said this setup has already set back a number of critical projects.
For example, the airport in Malang, Cotabato, it's already finished, but it was pushed by the provincial government, and the national government gave us go-ahead signal, so it was built. But the CAAP,
That's the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines.
the CAAP doesn't have that budget to build an air terminal. So what's an airport without terminal? So right now, the airport service only Carabaos and become a big park for the residents to enjoy every afternoon.
We'll pause here. When we return, we tackle another big concern: corruption. I asked Mindanews reporter Froilan Gallardo what he thought of fears that the shift to full devolution would worsen corruption at the local level.
I wouldn't have a big concern on that because at the end of the day, these mayors and governors are answerable to their people. During election time, the people will vote for those they see that have much alleviated their lives. That's in the end, it might not be quick solution, quick outcome, but in the end, mayors and governors who are not tending to the needs of their people will be outvoted in the office.
When asked the same question, the palace said there are adequate anti corruption safeguards in place, including procurement laws and the country's audit body. But Froilan isn't counting on proper oversight or legal accountability.
I mean, I have to hate to tell you that graft and corruption cases are very success rate of filing graft and corruption cases are very nil in the Philippine courts. So we are not we are a country that's not good in that.
Another issue presented by this shift, Froilan added, is that it will make the transfer of power in local governments a lot more complicated.
There's a problem here when a local mayor who spent 8 years, 6 years, got defeated on or do not run for the election on the ninth year or got defeated with midterm. So all the new mayor will going to, especially if he's not an ally, will going to reassign all these workers out. I mean, they were reassigned to apart from barangays. I mean, it's an overhaul at the city hall and provincial capital, meaning all those employees that the government spent giving knowledge, countless of workshops, countless of trainings, all of a sudden they're gone.
So, given the stakes, I asked Froilan what the LGUs and communities he covered thought about this shift to full devolution.
It's not being talked about it. It's not being discussed. Then the subject is really blank for those in authority, persons in authority. There are places that are, as you said, are catching up. The problem now is those catching up and those who didn't really know. Because there are some places here that the mayors are not residing in the towns itself. They're residing in the cities.
For Froilan, all these factors have raised the stakes of two upcoming elections.
That's why the barangay elections is coming October would be one of the key factors because that will increase the barangay era. So everyone would be gunning for that. The barangay elections will be the barometer for the election in 2025, the midterm elections.
So, where does this leave us? This year, an additional 185 billion pesos was distributed among LGUs, taken from the national government's budget. The deadline for full devolution is 2024, but Malacanang says that date isn't set in stone. And for Mindanews journalist Froilan Gallardo, the government has plenty to figure out in the meantime.
Devolution is good. It's bound to happen. But you have to look also at the cultural aspect. Because as I said, like Mindanao has around two systems already, BARM and the national government. And even the national government systems, some of the provinces are not really up to it. Although I know some of them will benefit very much, but it has to remain to be seen.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Bella Perez Rubio. This episode was edited by Pidoy Blanco. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or two. And don't forget to give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app. At para sa mga mahilig manood sa YouTube, Puma Podcast na rin po kami doon. Just search Puma Podcast and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for listening.